Welcome to Rights and Remedies, the podcast where law, advocacy, and healing come together. I'm Allison Mahoney, your host and a lawyer dedicated to fighting for the rights of survivors of domestic and sexual abuse, as well as children harmed by the child welfare system. Each week, we delve into legal battles and court cases, share powerful stories that demand change, and spotlight the cutting-edge practices that are helping victims on their journey to healing. So, if you're ready to dive into the intersection of advocacy and healing, subscribe to Rights and Remedies today. New episodes are released weekly, and we can't wait to have you join the conversation. Together, we can make a difference. Welcome back to Rights and Remedies. Before we begin today's episode, please be advised that we will be discussing sensitive topics, including child abuse and child neglect, which may be triggering for some listeners. So if you need to take a break or skip this episode, please do so and prioritize your own well-being. Today's guest is Dr. John DeGarmo. He is an international expert in parenting and foster care, and he's a TEDx talk presenter. He's the founder and director of the Foster Care Institute, and he and his wife have had over 60 children come through their home as foster parents. He is an international consultant to schools, law firms, and foster care agencies. And he's an author of several foster care books, including the Foster Parenting Manual. Dr. John has appeared on CNN, HLN, Good Morning America, NBC, Fox, CBS, and PBS stations across the nation. And he and his wife are also the recipients of the Good Morning America Ultimate Hero Award. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. John. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Sounds like you've done a lot of really good work for the world. So thank you. To start, what inspired you to start fostering?
Well, I didn't want to do it to begin with. If I go way, way back years ago, I really had no desire to be a foster parent because I believe so many of those myths out there, misconceptions about foster care. I thought that the kids are bad kids, and I thought that foster parents are weird people. That last one's kind of true. Foster parents are a little bit weird because it's a very different kind of lifestyle. It's not a normal lifestyle. When you're caring for kids in your house 24 hours a day who are in crisis, who have experienced great trauma, et cetera. It's a different kind of lifestyle. So my our first child died of a condition called anencephaly or anencephaly. It's a condition where the brain or skull doesn't truly form. And my wife was in labor for 92 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And as I write in several of my books, I turned my back on so many things back then. And it really wasn't until years later when we moved back to the United States from Australia, where my wife is from Australia, moved back to the United States, and I started teaching in a very rural school system in middle Georgia.
Mhm.
And I noticed a lot of kids coming through my classroom with issues of behavior and academics and attendance. And I kept thinking, what's going on? Why so many kids in this small rural area? And I noticed that it started in their home. A lot of their birth parents were struggling as well. And there's a lot of neglect, et cetera. And at the same time, there was in this small rural county, there was the largest child sex trafficking ring in America back in the late 1990s happening in this area. And the person who's in charge of it was eventually arrested for bringing over 1,000 children over state lines for child sex trafficking.
Oh my
And I
God.
had a lot of those kids, those victims in my classroom. So, I went to my wife and said, "Hey, we lost our first child. We have three healthy children right now. I've got a lot of kids who are in my classroom who are victims of neglect, abuse, and even trafficking. How can
Mhm.
we make a difference? What can we do to help these children out?" And that led to us being a foster parents to over 60 plus kids and adopting three children from the system itself.
How long were you fostering? 60 kids over like what time span are we talking?
From 2002 to I think it was 2018. And
Okay.
then we stopped because the three we've adopted all really need us
Hmm.
because they face their own challenges, if you will. And I travel so much now across the country helping others. But we are considering fostering in the future, maybe terminally ill babies.
Hmm.
That's our vision at the moment later on.
Gosh, you guys are saints. So a question just to follow up on something that you said. You mentioned that when you were a teacher, there were kids in your class who had been abused, neglected, or trafficked. Did you have a sense that those things were happening to them, or did you find out later that they were victims? Like,
Well,
what were warning signs
I
that you
certainly
noticed?
saw a lot of signs that indicated that. I had a senior in my classroom who was pregnant with triplets, and I recognized that neither her nor the father was in any shape whatsoever to care for those kids. I actually went home to my wife one day and said, "What if I brought home those babies?" And that really spurred on the foster parent discussion. We didn't bring those kids home, but we eventually brought home many, many others. But, looking back, before I was a foster parent, I really couldn't recognize as much as the signs now. Since I've been doing this so long, I can walk into a room and within a
Yeah.
few seconds say that child, that child, that child, that child, and this is what they're suffering from. But there were, to be sure, warning signs. I think it was the pregnant senior and the human trafficking that really rang some bells in my head. Said, we got to help. We got to make a difference here.
And so your organization, Foster Care Institute, what do you do? Where do you work? Why did you create it? I think I know the answer to that, but I'd love to for you to share with the listeners.
Yeah, thanks for asking. My office is global. Anywhere that there's a need. I help a lot of child welfare agencies, foster care programs, providing resources, support services, training of both families and staff. I help a lot of legislators on reforming the system. I help agencies with creating policies and procedures, and just training foster parents in general. So that's what we do. Kind of think of it as a one-stop shop, if you will, for all things foster care and child welfare. And
Okay.
I started it because I recognized there was such a void out there for foster parents to get the support services that they needed.
What are some of the hurdles or issues that foster parents face? I mean, you already mentioned that it's not a normal lifestyle that they're living, but for people who have never had any involvement with the foster care system or who maybe are thinking about fostering, what are some of the issues that foster parents face, and what are some of the solutions to address those? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, yes. Great question. Foster families like myself, when a child comes into our home, there's no label, there's no biological, there's no foster, there's no adoptive. They're members of our family. They become members of our family. And I think kids in foster care need three things: stability, structure, unconditional love. More than anything else, they need that unconditional love. So when they come to our home, we provide that. We provide that unconditional love. So when the children leave our home, for whatever reason it might be a wonderful reunification of their birth parents, whatever it might be, it's still a very hard time for foster parents because we truly experience feelings of grief and loss. It's like losing a member of our own family. In addition, um, as I said, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you get that child in crisis in your home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So a lot of foster parents experience burnout, various forms of stress, secondary traumatic stress, otherwise known as compassion fatigue. And I particularly like that term, compassion fatigue. Fatigue, exhaustion from compassion, from caring, exhaustion from caring. So those are some things that foster parents really struggle with. In addition, today's agencies, today's caseworkers are overworked, overwhelmed, under-resourced, under-supported, understaffed, underpaid. So they are so swamped with all they have to do. Many times they're unable to provide the support services that foster parents need. So foster parents feel like they are not getting the help that they need so many times, particularly when they are experiencing that grief, loss, etc. There's a few ways we can do it. We can lower the ratio of foster parent to caseworker. So if caseworkers don't have as many foster families on their plate, so to speak, so they can spend more time with the families instead of paperwork, court,
Hmm.
etc.
Yeah.
Foster parents need to have a sense of community. They need to come together with other foster parents in their area because no one really understands a foster parent like another foster parent. It's just such a different lifestyle. So they've got to be able to surround each other so they can lift each other up, share resources, etc. During the lockdowns of 2020, we lost a lot of good foster parents because when you had these kids who are not in school, kids in foster care are generally 18 months behind academically. School is the last place they want to be. They struggle with reading and math. And all of a sudden they are no longer in school. So they're not getting the support services they need. They're not getting in-person visitations with their birth parents. They're not getting routine, consistent professional counseling, professional therapy, which every child in foster care needs. And their anxiety levels went through the roof because they're living with strangers 24 hours a day. They're living with Their anxiety levels went through the roof. And a lot of foster parents were saying, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. I have my own concerns, and there's no one to help me because of social distancing. So a lot of foster parents said, I'm out. I'm out of here. This is too much. I didn't sign up for that. And since those lockdowns of 2020, I think we've really discovered the true pandemic. It's not a virus. It's never been a virus. It's mental health. Our children are struggling with a mental health pandemic, if you will. And teenage suicide, depression, and childhood anxieties, obesity, addictions are all skyrocketing. And a lot of that came to fruition during those lockdowns. So a lot of foster parents aren't equipped with those skills either to handle these new mental health issues that are overwhelming our children's society. So it's another way foster parents are struggling. I'll be honest, it's the hardest thing I've done. At the same time, it is by far the most rewarding thing I've
Mhm.
ever done. And every child really has made me just a better person overall.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I can imagine. And foster parents, having enough foster parents is so important because if there aren't enough foster parents, then kids go into temporary placements, hotels, emergency shelters. They get sent out of state. They're sleeping in caseworker offices. And so
Right.
it's really important to have enough good, stable foster homes with foster parents who have the right intentions, which is exactly what you said, to, be there for the child in whatever capacity that is, whether it's long term or short term. Um, so speaking of foster parent retention and foster parent recruitment, are you guys doing anything in that space? And if so, what are you doing to address those issues?
They go hand in hand.
Mhm.
Retention and recruitment go hand in hand. Agencies can spend a lot of time recruiting 10 foster parents, but if only two stick around, their recruitment efforts are
Yeah.
pretty stressed. And your average foster parent, on average, lasts about 18 months before they say, I'm out of here. So it's really hard to retain our foster parents, especially during today. So, yes, we're
Wow,
doing a number of
18,
things here at the
18
foster. I'm
months.
sorry.
18 months is not very long. A year
No,
and a
it's not.
half. Because what's the onboarding process for foster parents? They have to get licensed and everything. It's not fast.
No, it's not fast. It's not fast. Again, foster parents are struggling with lack of support services.
Huh.
Um, And so and then again, we lost so many during the lockdowns of
Yeah.
2020,
Okay.
2021. We do have a strong foster parent recruitment program here at the Foster Care Institute where we work with child welfare agencies across the country. In the state of Georgia, I'm traveling the state of Georgia on a very regular basis, helping to establish foster parent support groups and associations to help with retention. I'm working with agencies in Georgia to help with recruiting. So, and that, not just Georgia, but across country as well. So we're doing a lot of things here to focus on both of those because they really go together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And the support groups are those like in-person small group meetings where they can talk about different things that are coming up and how to address them.
Yes, before the lockdowns, there were a lot of support groups, associations, if you will, across country, and then we lost a lot of those during 2020 because people couldn't meet. And meeting online is okay, but meeting in person is so much more essential, if you will, because you can sit down with somebody who's not going to criticize you, who's not going to judge you, who's not going to look at you kind of funny, but they're going to be able to relate to what you're going through. And you can vent, you can cry, you can share, you can laugh at some of the absurdities that come along with foster parenting, and you can learn from each other, from what other people experience. I'm always learning every single time I'm with other foster parents. I'm always learning from what they experienced and how they handled it.
Right.
So that in person is by far the best.
That makes sense to me. And are the child welfare systems also collaborating? Because, I mean, you mentioned before, for example, that if a foster parent needs some kind of support from the caseworker, but the caseworker is overwhelmed and doesn't have the capacity to provide that support, talking about it in a group, I'm sure, is cathartic and can be helpful, but is it actually solving the issue without the child welfare agency also stepping in and say, okay, we hear these problems and are going to do something to address them?
There are many. agencies, child welfare agencies that do work alongside foster parent support groups, support them in some way.
Mm.
Yes, so they do have that. Sometimes though, a county or a town will set up their own support group independent of an agency. But when an agency can come alongside, it's all the better.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and so I'm curious, in Georgia, which is where you're based, um, I had mentioned before a number of things that can happen when kids don't have a foster home placement, or if there's only a temporary option until something longer term is figured out. What are you seeing happening there if there's not enough foster placements?
Well, it's not just in Georgia, it's across country. We're always seeing stories about children sleeping in hotels,
Mm,
children sleeping in offices. Hoteling is often referred
yeah.
to. And that is so bad on so many levels for everybody involved. But it's simply because there's not enough foster homes. And
Can you
I've spoken.
maybe explain a little bit more for those who aren't overly familiar with the foster care system? Why is it bad for a child to sleep at a hotel room, in a hotel
Well,
room?
well, to begin with, a child needs a nurturing, stable, consistent,
Mhm.
safe family environment to truly begin to trust, truly begin to form healthy attachments with other people, to truly begin to heal. And when they're not with a stable environment, stable home, if you will, those things are missing. When a child's sleeping in a hotel, there's often issues of trust and attachment. Many times the children might run away. The caseworkers are often stretched thin because they have to be there with the child as well, or someone's got to be there with them. So it's a strain on the resources, it's a strain on finances as well. And the caseworkers who are sleeping in the hotels, they didn't sign up for that, if you will, and it might lead to them burning out as well. It can lead to a lot more additional mental health issues. Again, I've worked with so many legislators across the country on this very issue, and it usually comes down to the one thing. There are not enough homes for these children in crisis. Where do you put them? You know,
Yeah.
when we have the opiate epidemic, when the parents are hospitalized or incarcerated or die because of their opiate addictions, where do these children go? When they're flooding into a foster care system that, for many states, can't fully address it, and they look for places. My wife and I have had as many as 11 kids in our house at the same time, which sounds crazy, and it is crazy. Oh, it's exhausting. I think it should be illegal in all 50 states, by the way. Seven in diapers at
Oh
the
my
same time.
gosh.
But we did that because there's not enough homes.
Yeah.
There's not enough homes.
Wow. You and I had previously spoken about the particular challenges with finding homes for older youth, which within the child welfare system, older youth, I think, is much younger than what most people would think. It's what, like 8 or 9 years old that kids become hard to place.
Right.
Um, so can you talk about that a little bit and what you're seeing with maybe issues with finding quote unquote older youth placements and if there's any solutions that you see for that, addressing that issue?
Many people sign up to become foster parents because they want a baby. They want to adopt a baby. And as I said, we've adopted three. We've also experienced four failed adoptions, which means more than half of our adoptions do not go through. I never recommend anybody going to foster parenting simply to adopt because that's not the end goal. The end goal is reunification with the birth parents. So, they're looking for those babies. One of the classes I'm teaching across country right now is called Parenting Troubled Teens. Nobody wants to take care of teens because they believe those misconceptions associated with the teens. But I'll tell you this, my wife and I have taken care of many teens, and I have found them to be the most exciting and adventurous because there's lots of opportunities for us to teach them some incredible, important living and social skills, how to drive a car, how to fill out a job application, how to cook and clean, how to prepare for life outside of high school. The statistics are grim. When they age out of the system, when the youth ages out of foster care, 55% drop out of school, 65% up homeless, 75% up incarcerated, and for many, the cycle just repeats itself for the next generation of children. So if we have the opportunity as foster parents to try to break that cycle, to help them prepare for life after foster care, whether it's technical school, military, college, or whatever it might look like,
Mm.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And as I said earlier, it's a lot of fun caring for those things. It's going to be stressful, yes, to be sure, But it's a very exciting time in their life. And for the many of those teens, they have that sense of the unknown. They don't know what to expect. So if we can help guide them
Yeah.
through those very scary times in their life and provide some stability, structure, and that unconditional love, we saw a 70% increase in teenage suicide attempts during the lockdown, since the lockdowns.
Wow.
Today's teens are really struggling. So they need someone to say, I'll help. They need someone to say, I'll be there for you. They need someone to say, you can be part of our family. They need someone to say, you know what? I love you.
Yeah. And you're wanted.
And you are wanted
Mhm.
and valued and important. And I
Yeah.
believe in you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for all of that. And again, for everything that you and your wife are doing. I mean, you are impacting so many lives. And now with the trainings and programs that you're doing, there's just a ripple effect where you're empowering other foster parents to hopefully do the same thing that you all have done. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about because you've had so many children come through your doors who have been involved in the foster care system. From what you've seen, can you talk a bit about what it seems like children's experiences are when they are in foster care?
Well, that's a great question. Nobody wants to be in foster care. No child wants to be in the foster care system. I foolishly believed when my wife and I first became foster parents in 2002, we had our first placement at 10:30 at night. I foolishly believed A, I was prepared for the training prepared me, and B, they'd be happy to come to my home. I was wrong on both accounts. My training did not prepare me for what this child had experienced, and they did not want to be in my house. I can provide all the stability, structure, unconditional love, etc. But at the end of the day, my family is not their family. My norms are not their norms. My rules, they may have never had any type of rules or structure or stability. So when they come to a home, it's a very, very scary time for these kids. They may ask questions like, why am I here? When do I go home? When do I see my mommy? Does anybody love me? That's why foster parents really need to have that ongoing, consistent education and get those support services and information knowledge so they are best equipped to care for those kids during a very scary time. When they come to our home, as I said, they're part of our family, but they have issues of trust. They have issues of attachment. And if they've been going from one home to the next, known as multiple displacement, they go from one home to the next, one family to the next, they have more and more issues of trust. They have more and more issues of attachment. They fall further and further behind in school. Many times they are given more psychotropic drugs as medication. Kids in foster care are often over-medicated with psychotropic drugs. So if we can provide a stable place for these children, so they're not bouncing from home to home to home and environment to environment, that's crucial for these children.
Mm. And many of the kids who are coming through your doors, were they sibling groups, or did you find that they were separated from their siblings? And
Sometimes we've had a sibling group of three, actually several groups of three. We had a group of five, sibling group of five. Sometimes it's just one child. Sometimes they're split up. You want to keep the family together by all means. You want to keep those children together because that's their family.
Mhm.
But there might be some instances where that's simply not possible for a number of reasons.
Right. Well, and I would imagine that it's probably difficult to find foster parents who can take five kids,
Yes,
right?
yes. When you have six kids to begin with in the house, and then you had five more, yeah.
Oh,
You know,
that's when you had the 11?
we've had an 11 twice. Yeah, that's when we become a two-car family everywhere we go.
Oh my gosh. While you were fostering, were you and your wife both working as well? Or did you? Yes. How did you manage that?
Sure. We were both working. We both did our doctorate at the same time. We were both doing a doctorate, had full-time jobs, and nine kids
Oh
on
my
average. We
God.
averaged nine kids for about 6 years, I think it was. How do we do it? Oh, we sleep. So we sleepwalk through it. It's exhausting, but
Yeah.
we rely upon each other. We rely upon each other. We rely upon our own children. When the child comes in our home, we all wrap around that child. So sometimes my own kids are helping out. We need them to help out. But self-care is also very, very important. If we can't care for ourselves, we can't care for these children. So we
Right.
look for opportunities for self-care. My wife and I lean upon each other, but at the same time, we also recognize, hey, maybe my spouse needs a break. Maybe my wife just needs to go away for a while, go off the movie, go shopping, spend a weekend at Chateau Alon, which she did one time, Georgia. Go to Starbucks. For
Yeah.
me, it's going out in my garden. I love to garden. It's very therapeutic. It's very healing.
Mhm.
So there's a few things that we do, but yes, it's again, it's a demanding lifestyle.
Right. Demanding, but obviously you did it because
Oh,
it was so rewarding
I
and
have learned to love so much more. I've had so much
yeah.
joy come into my home. It's just been so rewarding on so many levels.
Do you find that you've stayed in touch with many of the kids who you fostered?
As many as we possibly can. As many as we possibly can, yes. Sometimes they go back home and their birth parents might not want to have any type of connection with us or contact with us because we might represent a time in their life or a period in their life where they don't want to acknowledge or remember. Sometimes the birth parents are just, they're overwhelmed with their own
Yeah.
trauma that they don't want to reach out to us. But we try to as often as we can, and not only just for us, because again, they're members of our family. And I often think, how's so and so doing right now? What is so and so? It's so and so's birthday. This is the day they left their home. How are they doing? But also because when they've come to our home and they've become our family, when they leave, we want to make sure that they recognize that, when we say we love you, we mean it. We say you're part of our family, we mean it. That helps them to develop those healthy attachments with other adults in their life, now and for the future.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's so important, and I think that's a great place to end this conversation on a high note. For people out there who are interested in connecting with you, with learning more about your organization, maybe foster parents or potential foster parents who have questions, where can they find you and get in touch with you?
Uh, Very simply, just type in Dr. John DeGarmo Foster Care or the Foster Care Institute online. My website will come up. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Dr. John DeGarmo. Pretty simple.
Okay, perfect. And we will include all of that in our show notes. Dr. DeGarmo, thank you so much for being on. And again, thank you for all that you've done. It was an honor speaking with you and learning about your work. And thank you to everyone who listened to this episode.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Rights and Remedies. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights into the legal issues facing victims and the pathways to healing. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Whether you're a survivor, an advocate, or someone looking to learn more, we're here to support and empower you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others. You can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at ALM Law LLC for updates, resources, and more. Until next time, take care and remember that together we can make a difference.